Hey, everybody. Thanks for listening to the Marriage is Tougher Than Woodpecker Lips podcast. This is Brian, joined by my co host, Paul. We'd like to welcome you to a community meant for the men of the world to share their thoughts and perspectives on marriage. We can learn from each other's experiences and help each other be better husbands. This week on the pod, we want to talk to you about practicing approach versus avoidance for those times when you are just not feeling.
Before we hop all the way into the episode, we would just like to welcome you. For those, this is your first time checking us out, thank you and welcome. For those who have been rocking with us for a while, we appreciate you coming back and returning. If you'd like to engage with us on a deeper level, you can search Marriage is Tougher, and you can hit us up on our DMs on any of those platforms. Also, you can go to marriageistopper.com, which is our website, hit the contact form, leave a message down there. To be a guest, that would be the same route that you would use. Go to marriageistopper.com, click the contact form. Let us know who you are, what you'd like to talk about, and we would connect with you to try to get you on the show. So let's now dive into this episode.
Don't like being in an uncomfortable space with her. A lot of it is, there are times where difficult conversations need to be had. And I am thinking so much about what the backlash will be. And that's not to say, she's going to get angry, this, that, and the third. It's like, if I have this conversation with my wife, what are all the things that are going to get triggered that we're going to now have to work through? How long is that going to take? And am I better off just swallowing this right now?
Yes, I agree with all that, all those statements. And it is just this juggle that I have with myself, right? And the wild part is normally it works out for the better. Actually, I can't say it's never not worked out for the better when having the conversation. It just might be harder or more difficult than I would like to get to the other side, right? Because in my mind, any conversation, I've already had it planned. I know what's going to say. It makes sense. Like, just jump on board. This is what should happen. But knowing that I have to consider another person, and who may not think like me, who may take a little longer to get on board, who may challenge me to prove whatever it is I think the direction that we should go, is a thing. And when you're dealing with a whole different human who doesn't process everything exactly like you, or say things exactly like you, or receive things how you think it should be received, there can be, frankly, some anxiety in prepping for that. So I'm just going to say that's normal to have.
Yeah.
And I feel like it is a way that we can stunt our marriage growth.
Yes.
Which is why I try to lean in, not perfect by any means. And I can speak for us. I know it's just why we try to lean in those conversations with our wives, even though it does not feel awesome.
It's almost like this feeling of difficult things are easier alone, right? Because then it's, like you said, less of the considering someone else, how they feel, how they'll react. Um, and like the whole process of working through that with someone else, having to consider all those things. But on the other side, that's not why we got married, to do things by ourselves, right? And handle difficult situations by ourselves. I think where this leans mostly for me is when it is potentially solely my difficulty in a specific area. Uh, you know, sharing that, how am I going to be looked at? Um, and it even goes into another topic that I wanted to bring up. Um, you know, and we'll probably we will talk about it, but we'll just as a prelude. What does feelings look like, right? Because I think that's where I get stuck, is not wanting to share those feelings sometimes, because it makes me have the perception that I am looking weak by being vulnerable. And then part of it as well is I may not know how to fix or change the things that need to be worked on. And that leaves me stuck. So, like, it's like admitting the fault or the issue makes my inadequacy real.
That is exactly what it does. But yes, and I'm going to acknowledge that sucks. Because when it's in your head, it's just a perception. Like, you can still like reason it away or reason it to make it lessen, or but once you put it out there and it's agreed upon, then it's like, oh, this is real and it's here.
Don't agree on it.
Right. But it's real. But it's like, it's a real thing.
Maybe I
Excuse me.
could change it before she realizes I'm terrible.
And that is a thing, even though she knew you were terrible before you realized you were terrible.
Hey.
So she's like, finally, let's work this out. Thanks. And I think for me, there's a pride issue even in that part, right? Like, knowing that she's now seen it, but she also knew that I wasn't ready to receive it yet. So there's like another instance of inadequacy
Yeah.
for
Yeah.
myself. So it's like this deep thing that it's subconscious, right? Because I never think about this hard about anything. But as we're talking through it, it's like, oh man, what are the layers of this that are just
Yeah.
oozing out? And that's it. Like, right, I knew about that part that you just said, but I never thought about feeling inadequate because I missed it or I wasn't ready to receive from her what she's seen. So what's that say about me?
Yeah. Man, I was listening to The Basement the other day, and he was talking about what the reaction is that criminals have when, they're being interrogated and they finally when it's finally exposed that the police know, like, it's you. Like, we know it's you, right? And he said, they typically get left in the room by themselves, and the way that the police will know that that's the actual person is they fall asleep. And it's the feeling of, all right, like, the running away and all that is over now. Like, they got me. Like, I can finally rest. Like, it just is what it is. Like, right? It's that acceptance. And I feel some of that in this conversation, right? And I'm not going to say I've fallen asleep after I've, had difficult conversations with my wife. And maybe I have, I don't know. But guess it depends on what time of day those conversations happen.
Yeah.
But what I am saying is I have definitely felt that release of tension and worry, self-doubt, right?
Mm-hmm.
Because like you've said, my wife has a history of being very accepting of my faults to the extent that she's willing to help me work through them to be a better husband, right?
Mm-hmm.
Um, and that's just so real to know that I can get there, but I still have this difficulty of approaching this topic, whatever it is in your world, because it is just this wall that I know that I have to run through, but I also know it hurts to hit the wall.
Yeah. It's uh I was thinking as that goes, just like with anything, does it get easier as you do it? Or do you just get more accustomed to what the pain would feel like as you're doing it? Right? Because I'm thinking like, I was thinking WWF, right? Like, it's staged, but there's still a physical aspect to it, right? So no matter how many times you get choke slammed, you're still getting choke slammed, right? Right? So does it get easier, or do you just become more accustomed to what it feels like as you're
Yeah.
getting choke slammed?
I think that it's we build up in our head the fear of what's going to happen on the backside of the conversation, which I would say typically it's never as bad as what we think it is going to be. 'Cause I specifically remember having this. I asked Katie a question. And I was like, "Is it okay for me to tell you these things?" And she's like, "Yes, that's what I want you to do." And I felt so good on the back end of that. But again, it's still a struggle because I've got such a long history of struggling with it. So
Hmm,
I would say we haven't practiced it. Is
that's
the task
accurate.
easier? Maybe not, right? Like if I equate it to hitting a driver well on the golf course.
Hmm.
Is that an easy task? No. But if I practice enough in the right way, I know how to do it and I'm less hesitant to swing the club.
Hmm. That's a good thing. The more you practice, right, it doesn't get easier. It's muscle memory, expectations, and it's adjustment, right? So the more you practice, right, the first hole you get out there, bam. You see, oh wow, that was not what I wanted to do. But you're
Right.
also not like falling apart about it. You're like, okay, what adjustments do I need to make for the next hole? Right?
Yeah.
So it's almost like you're you know how to hit it well, but you also know if it doesn't, it's not the end of the world, and let me make my adjustment. If you
Mhm.
don't practice, then it's always going to feel like it's the end of the world every conversation. But the more history you get of it going well, the less of the anxiety that you have for it to not go well. I don't know if that makes sense, but that's how it made sense in my
I
mind.
think it does. And I think a lot of it is doing the work in the trenches, right? Doing the work. And again, we're equating this to golf, on the driving range, putting rounds in
Hmm.
when they don't count in a tournament, right? So now
Hmm.
you've built up all this history. And now obviously there's still going to be the pressure of the tournament, right? There's still going to be the pressure of the conversation in real time. But by doing the work in the trenches, you're not apprehensive to take the swing. you're not apprehensive or as apprehensive to take the swing, to have the conversation, to say the difficult words that need to be said. Um, Again, like you're saying, because you've built a history of those conversations going well, you've built a history of delivering a message, a difficult message, in a way that your wife can hear it, to give you the space to be heard and, uh, give back to you. What do I want to say? Um, Give back to you a conversation, I guess, is really, really what I'm getting at, right? So it's not one sided. It's not just you delivering hard news and her walking away like, yep, I hate you now.
That's how we think it all is going to go.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. Like, this marriage is over. I can't believe you just said that.
Right. I think something that you said about practicing, what are some aspects that could be considered doing the work in the trenches versus the work? Like you equated it from the driving range or the rounds that don't count, right, in the tournament. So, what are some aspects of the conversation that you would equate to the driving range or the tournaments that don't count?
Yeah. So I got this from you, really, and well, and therapy, but it is we have so in therapy we had literally created scenarios, um, where it was like, what if, right? How would this conversation go if I were to say something like this to you? And without any pressure of the scenario being real, processing through, what would we say? What do I need to hear to feel safe? Right. And working through that at least gives you the history of saying those words.
Hmm, that's that's good. I forgot you mentioned that. That's a good one. And yeah, we play that out in our coaching when we do that. Now that I think about it, it's like a random, very either unrelated, untrue, or something so minute. It's so extreme that
Mhm.
the couple doesn't see it as would actually happen.
Yeah.
But you're walking through how to communicate in that space.
Yeah.
And then you're building your muscle up. Like, oh, we've had conversations like these. It's not on this topic, but we know how to maneuver in this space. That's good.
Yeah. And it's not hard to come up with those topics. If you pull from other people's experiences, other relationships that you're aware of,
Hmm.
when you hear about their struggles, their arguments, just as people do, they talk about their problems. If you bring that to your relationship and say, you know, this person and this person were arguing about this, they're going through this struggle. What would we do if we were there?
Yeah,
Because
that's
there's just plenty of examples, right?
plenty. Yeah. So, how do you feel when you're having this conversation? What allows you to push through the avoidance factor to actually approach it?
Yeah. And that's something I still struggle with. It is reminding myself of my why, reminding myself that my marriage is bigger than me and how I may feel in a moment.
That's good.
You know what I mean? Sometimes it's reminding myself that my children need to have a good example of how to get through this, and if I don't become that example, where are they going to get it from? That's not to say that they can't get it from somewhere else, but it may be from somewhere else that I don't want them to get it from.
That part.
So that
That's all good things. Yeah, man. Knock that one out the park.
Oh man, that is making me feel some type of way right now. I'm not gonna hold you. It's,
Well, I don't have anything else. Do you have another nugget to drop? Because you are on a roll here.
I don't think that I do, man. I got lost in the thought of the love for my children.
Yeah. Yeah, that'll definitely, yeah, that hit me hard for sure. If we don't give them the example, they will see it somewhere else. But we get to choose how they see the example in our own home.
Mhm.
So lean in and
Yeah.
approach these topics. Yeah. That's all I could say. It's just, you just gotta do it knowing that the other side, in my experience, I'll say the other side. Okay, let me say this before we leave. If you're in a healthy relationship with an abusive partner that won't hold things over your head that you say, it can be amazing. Now, if your partner needs work and they won't, and they may hold things against you to use it later, you probably have to do some work and some therapy to create a space where they feel like they won't have to do that. And they may have to do that work on their own. Because being vulnerable is real. I say all that to say, for those of us who do have a partner that is a fertile ground for your relationship to grow, lean in, man. Plant and water some things so that you can continue to grow in your marriage.
That's a good way to end it.
All right. Well, thank you for making it through this conversation. We appreciate you. Please hit us up, searching Marriage is Tougher on all social media platforms, or go to our website, marriagestougher.com. Leave us a comment on our contact form so we can know how we're doing, where we can get better, where we can improve, and also greet you if you'd like to be a guest. All right, man. Thanks again. We'll talk to y'all later.
Peace.